Welcome back to the deep dive. Our focus today, well, it's incredibly specific. We're not really spending time hunting for, new strategies or building these complex daily routines. We're doing the crucial work of elimination. We're diving into the exact behavioral changes needed for, well, not just building substantial wealth, but really fundamentally improving your life's trajectory. We've been through a source that frankly cuts straight to the chase. It outlines 5 destructive habits that according to this research, you absolutely must stop, like immediately, if you want to see long-term success. So our mission today is kind of a shortcut, extracting the most powerful mechanics behind this needed mindset shift. It's about clearing the path ahead.
That's exactly right. Most discussions about success, they focus on addition, don't they? What new software to buy, what book to read, what habit to start next.
Right.
But often the reason people fail isn't really a lack of effort. It's more an abundance of these undermining behaviors already kind of hardwired in. So yeah, we're focusing on what you need to stop doing so that the effort you do put in actually, well, pays off.
I like that framing, like we're doing a behavioral inventory check, figuring out what needs to get tossed overboard. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the habits around internal discipline and self-validation. The first destructive habit the source points to is quitting, but it's got a specific edge. It's stopping the habit of quitting when tasks become difficult. This isn't about, quitting a venture that's strategically doomed. It's about folding the second you hit resistance. Friction.
Yeah, this is really the acid test of discipline, isn't it? If you look at the source material, it really hammers home that success is rarely, if ever, a straight line. It's a constant battle against difficulty. And the discipline muscle that lets you succeed, well, it's universal. The moment you quit because, say, your business plan hits a snag, or you skip the gym because the last rep feels tough, you're essentially training yourself to give up the moment things require real effort.
Okay, but hang on. Does the source acknowledge that sometimes, people just need to be smart, practice intelligent triage, know when to cut losses on a genuinely bad idea? How do we tell the difference between quitting because it's hard versus like strategically shutting down a losing proposition?
That's a really critical distinction, and yes, the source addresses it. The problem it defines is quitting due to discomfort, not because of strategic failure. So if the only reason you stopped was that the task needed more time or more focus, or frankly more pain than you anticipated, then according to this framework, you failed the discipline test. The failure isn't out there in the market, it's internal, it's in the commitment. And this behavior, it trains the mind for immediate gratification. But wealth building, that's fundamentally about delayed gratification.
Got it. So if quitting is the sort of physical escape route from difficulty, then the second habit is the psychological escape. And that's stopping the habit of seeking approval from others. We all want validation, right? But the source argues we have to be super selective about whose opinions we actually let in.
Critically, it says we must stop seeking approval from those who have not achieved the success you're aiming for. That's where the toxic loop really starts.
And why is that so damaging?
Well, think about it. If you're trying to build something significant, maybe wealth, maybe a high ambition career, and you constantly seek approval from people who are, let's say, rooted in scarcity thinking or fear, or maybe a fixed mindset, their advice, it's always going to be built around their current reality, not your potential one.
Yeah.
They'll end up confirming your doubts, validating your fears, which is exactly what your subconscious kind of wants, sometimes permission to play it safe, to play small.
Right. Let's put a concrete scenario on that. Say you found a market niche. It needs you to quit your stable but maybe low-paying job. If you take that idea to your, risk-averse neighbor who's maybe struggling financially and ask, hey, is this a good idea? You're basically just outsourcing your conviction to their fear, to their lower risk tolerance.
Precisely. You've hit the nail on the head. And that's exactly why the source advocates for an immediate replacement action. You have to rely instead on self-approval and your own conviction. What's fascinating here is that this internal anchor, this self-belief, is actually what allows you to survive those moments of difficulty we talked about in Habit 1. If you're constantly looking outside for permission, for validation, then the first rejection, the first tough week, it can just collapse your whole endeavor. Your self-belief has to become the primary metric, maybe the only metric that truly matters in those crunch times.
Okay, that shifts us perfectly into the third destructive habit. This one's all about allocation, where we put our resources, time, money, focus. It addresses investment priority, stopping the habit of chasing external investments. I mean, we're constantly bombarded, right? Get-rich-quick schemes, volatile markets, promises of fast returns. But the source is really insistent here. This external focus has to stop, or at least pause. before you've properly invested in your own skills and character. It sets up a clear hierarchy. Self-investment comes first.
Yes, and this is where we really need to spend a moment, because it's foundational to the whole philosophy presented. Most people, let's be honest, they want the market to do the heavy lifting for them. They think wealth just comes from finding the right stock or the next crypto craze. But here's where it gets really interesting. The specific insight from the source is that personal development yields the greatest return, full stop. And crucially, this return is described as both exponential and universal.
Universal, how so? Like, if I invest $10,000 in a stock, the return is just tied to that one company, right?
Exactly. An external investment is, well, it's a finite bet. Its ceiling is dictated by market forces, economic cycles, things largely outside your control. But investing in yourself, let's say you spend that same $10,000 and maybe 500 hours really mastering negotiation skills or learning advanced coding or maybe transforming your physical health, your mental resilience. That return, it gets applied to every single opportunity you encounter from that point forward for the rest of your life.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going.
Yeah. When you negotiate a better salary package, when you secure a lower interest rate on a mortgage, when you close a better deal with a vendor, the percentage return on that initial self-investment, it gets realized again and again and again across decades in totally different situations. It basically raises both the floor and the ceiling of every single future transaction or interaction you have. The return is compounding, and unlike a stock, it's effectively uncapped by external markets.
That makes so much sense. It's the ultimate foundational step, isn't it? If you haven't built the foundation of being a disciplined, skilled, convicted person, well, why would you expect to successfully manage complex external assets? You are the first and most important asset you own, full stop. So if you're listening right now, maybe consider dedicating your next chunk of resources, time or money, to acquiring a hard skill or fixing a behavioral flaw, not chasing some volatile stock tips someone mentioned.
Focus on that 100% internal ROI first. It pays differently.
Right. Okay, let's pivot now. We've talked internal work. Let's look at strategic environment management. This covers the final two habits, and it's all about the people you allow into your inner circle.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, these final two habits really highlight that your external relationships aren't passive. They're not just there. They are actively either consuming or reinforcing that internal strength we've been talking about. So you have to choose really wisely to protect the investment you've just made in yourself. And the habits themselves are pretty blunt. Habit 4 is stopping the practice of listening to broke people for financial advice. And habit 5 is stopping the practice of choosing unsupportive partners.
Okay, habit 4 seems fairly straightforward, right? Seeking financial advice from someone whose own finances are consistently unsuccessful. It's just illogical in its face. But let's dig into habit 5 a bit. Isn't that potentially harsh? Does the source acknowledge that sometimes people just have different risk tolerances? Maybe labeling a partner unsupportive is a bit unfair.
That's the necessary nuance, yes. The source isn't defining unsupportive as simply, having different opinions or maybe exercising healthy caution. That can be valuable. The definition here applies specifically to a partner whose own fear, or maybe low ambition, or even resentment of your potential change, actively attempts to sabotage your higher-level goals. They introduce doubt, not critical analysis. There's a difference.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A supportive partner might ask hard questions to help you refine your plan, to stress test it. Have you considered X? What's the contingency for Y? An unsupportive partner, in this context, uses questions designed primarily to make you quit out of fear. Things like, are you sure we can afford that risk? What if you fail and we lose everything? See the difference in intent.
Yeah, okay. So the key isn't really the difference in opinion itself, but the underlying intent and, importantly, the resulting emotional drain on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the common thread uniting habits 4 and 5. Both actions, listening to broke advisors and choosing unsupportive partners, critically undermine your growth and ambition. How? By systematically eroding that self-conviction you work so hard to build internally. That external noise just becomes internal doubt. It seeps in. And choosing an unsupportive partner, specifically, is described almost like installing an anchor in your psychological energy system. The energy required just to overcome their resistance or manage their anxieties, that's energy that cannot be spent on your high-level growth.
Wow, it literally transforms your potential support system into a major liability. You need a co-pilot, maybe even just a supportive passenger, not someone actively trying to pull the emergency brake. Okay, let's quickly recap the 5 destructive habits we need to stop, according to this source. 1, quitting when things get difficult. 2, seeking approval from the unsuccessful. 3, chasing external investments before self-investment. 4, listening to broke people for financial advice. And 5, choosing unsupportive partners. So what does this all mean when you really put it together?
Well, I think it means that achieving wealth or fundamentally improving your life isn't really about finding some magic external formula or waiting for the perfect opportunity to fall into your lap. It seems to be a formula built from the inside out. First, achieve that internal strength. That's the discipline and conviction piece we discussed. And then strategically manage your environment by choosing advisors and partners who actually reinforce that growth, who support it. Essentially, you stop creating your own debris, stop letting others create it for you, and suddenly the path forward becomes much, much clearer.
A comprehensive system, really, from the inside out. And that brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. We've given you 5 things the source says to stop doing. We want you to genuinely consider which one of those 5 actions, if you stopped it today, right now, which one would free up the most psychological bandwidth or maybe the most financial energy, specifically for your own personal development? Because remember, stopping a destructive behavior isn't just passive avoidance, it's actually proactive investment. By clearing out that psychological debt, that relational drag, you create the space needed for that powerful internal investment in yourself to actually flourish. So maybe start by just defining the limits. What will you no longer tolerate in your own behavior or in your immediate environment? Think on that. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.